When we first thought about doing a TfL podcast, we thought, wouldn't it be epic? Wouldn't it be amazing to make the whole city and its transport network actually, there we go, our outdoor studio? Well, I'm on a Santander hire bike going through a bit of London here that is not a lot older than TfL itself, actually. Canary Wharf. It is warm today. Gosh, it is warm today. Now, it might not be a perfect city for cycling, but things are changing faster than we might think. I remember the only cyclists were the super determined ones, and hire bikes weren't a thing at all. And TfL brought these in 2010. Now, time to dock this bad boy, because today we are talking about active travel and the environment and the future of TfL. Welcome to Mind the Gap.
Please mind the gap.
Now, if you haven't heard our podcast before, my name is Tim Dunn, and I'm a Londoner in love with my city and its transport network. And in this series, I'm telling the story of TfL 25. Right, okay, that's the bike docked neatly away. Okay, there's this thing I didn't really think of as being public transport equipment, the helmet popped inside my bag. So it's time to hop now on the DLR to get to my big interview today, because he is definitely a huge cycling fan. But where am I off to now? Well, I'm off to City Hall. In fact, I'm almost there for an interview I'm really excited about with one of the most senior politicians in London, Seb Dance. And to get there, I've cycled, and now I'm about to jump onto the DLR for just a couple of stops. Okay, here I am at City Hall, transported here in just a couple of seconds. TfL is good, but not quite that good and that fast yet. Anyway, okay, it's the audio editor who got me here so quickly this time. So, Seb Dance, Deputy Mayor of London for Transport, and also he's the Deputy Chair of Transport for London's board, which means he takes a leading role in shaping transport policy for the capital, things like active travel, air quality, but sustainable infrastructure strategies as well. Stuff that 25 years ago that wasn't just not part of TfL's remit, but was barely spoken about by anyone at all. And that is exactly what I'm here to talk to him about. So, here we go. You go upstairs here, because this is the new City Hall. Not that new, actually, I guess, but still, it is still striking and gleaming in the morning sun here. The cable cars, there we go, sailing overhead here just by the ExCeL at Royal London Docks. So, let's go in and speak to the Deputy Mayor. Seb, first of all, thank you so much for hosting us here at City Hall.
Welcome.
I mean, it's great to be here, but I mean, I'm pleased to know that I came here by bicycle today. But I mean, you famously...
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, have used your bike quite a lot, but have you used your bike a lot recently?
Yes. Well, I actually, okay, for full disclosure, no, I haven't used my bike recently, but I have used bikes recently. So my bike is currently lying unoiled and with slightly dodgy brakes and unused. I don't cycle it with dodgy brakes. It needs servicing. That's what I'm trying to say. And it will be serviced. In fact, it will be serviced this week because the weather is lovely and I want to get out there cycling. But yes, I use bikes. I use the Santander bikes, and I use them a lot actually. And particularly on days like this, where frankly I prefer it to other modes of travel, which are obviously wonderful. But for me, cycling when I can is lovely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I walk everywhere. I live in the middle of London, or I live sort of quite centrally, and just the joy of active travel and walking the city gives a different perspective, doesn't it, of course, on the way. But we'll talk today quite a few things. But first, give us a bit of context. What exactly is your role,
Yeah,
Seb Dance?
I
Exactly
ask
what
myself
do
that
you
every
do?
day.
Who
What is
don't
it
know
I'm
what you
doing?
do? And when did you start
Yeah.
in it?
Okay, right. So, I mean, I am one of 9 deputy mayors, and we support the mayor. The mayor, in respect to TfL, is also the chair of the board, for which I am the deputy chair. So I have this kind of dual role of being institutionalised in TfL on the board and overseeing the work of TfL through that, but obviously on a day-to-day basis overseeing TfL's work on behalf of the mayor. So the mayor has a very wide-ranging transport strategy that has at its very heart the goal of having 80% of all journeys by public and active travel by 2041. That's our pole star, if you like, and that's the thing that we judge all of our actions by. Is this going to contribute or is this going to detract from that goal? That's really what we do on a day-to-day basis. You asked me earlier if I cycled, and of course, I think the answer would have been quite different 25 years ago, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
I used to cycle in London as a kid when I lived in Putney, but only ever in the common, never on the main roads. My dad was always very, very clear with me that, you need to watch out for left-turning vehicles and all the rest of it, and we generally stayed clear of the streets. Now I can cycle the whole way home on dedicated cycleways or indeed on quiet streets that are part of the cycle route home. It's really, really pleasant, and you see families using it. You see people who have the confidence to just go out and enjoy their own city. I mean, look, I've got nothing against cars. They're very helpful. They're very useful. I think we've all used them, and we're all going to continue to use them. The point being that it shouldn't only be about cars, right? Streets are not just about cars. They're about people and they're about other uses. They're not motorways in the city. They are shared spaces, and I think it's really important that we kind of do what we can to promote as much as possible the idea that people can use them in many different ways. One of my favourite moments in this job was actually, I mean, I would say this, wouldn't I? The opening of the Elizabeth line. You think, oh, is that because you had great new trains, and they are great new trains, and shiny new stations, and they are shiny new stations. Yeah, that was fun and everything. My favourite moment actually was I was at Farringdon when one of the first trains came in and the doors opened, and I was looking at the reaction of people. And most people just got off the train, looked at the way out sign, and just got on their way, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. And I loved that. I thought, my goodness, we have put in £19 billion worth of infrastructure here, and most people just kind of take it as part of the natural environment, and that's really what we should be aiming for. Most journeys should be, every journey should be completely forgettable. Every single journey should be forgettable. It should just be part of the natural DNA of getting around. And I think it's the same with the Superloop. I think it's the same with the cycle network. Is that when you build these things, people just wonder, why on earth didn't we have this before? This suits my way of thinking about my relationship with the city much, much better. And so it's about making it intuitive.
Frictionless in terms of decisions, frictionless in terms of actually going aboard and doing it, and frictionless in accessing it as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's look back. I mean, in 2016 there were 30 zero-emission buses. Now there are over 2,000. That's quite a change. And we've got black taxis that are electric. We've got big changes in massive changes here for big positives for London. But let's talk about EV charging electric cars, because that is also something I didn't realise recently is part of TfL's and the wider strategy in transport in London. Some people push back on it because saying, it's just switching one congestion for another type of congestion. Yeah. But what's your answer to that kind of criticism and the fact that people might use big resources for putting in EVs as well? And how do you respond to that?
Yeah, so firstly, just because I can't resist, you mentioned the black cabs and the red buses, and of course the third colour here is green, which is that they've both gone green, or are certainly going green, and the 2,000 zero-emission buses is the biggest fleet in Western Europe. The criticism on EVs, I completely understand that, of course, because if you just have the same number of vehicles as you have now in a heavily congested city, what's the solution? Yes, of course, the air will be better, though, of course, no vehicle is without its contribution to air pollution. We have to recognise that as well. The simple answer is that we need two things, don't we? We need the electrification of not just the public fleet when I talk about buses and taxis, but also, of course, of private vehicles as well. But the second thing is we do need 80% of all journeys to be by public and active travel. That target that was set in 2018 remains the goal. And the thing here, of course, is that what that does is two things. Firstly, it gets people out of their cars and walking and cycling and into buses and tubes and trains, etc., and trams. but it does something else, which is those necessary journeys by car. And let's face it, we're all going to have to use the car at some point. So, all of us will need to use the car some of the time, and some of us will need to use the car all of the time, right? For those 20% of journeys, they become easier. And that's really the point to all of this. I think we need to think about what it will look like rather than what it looks like now, and just imagine every internal combustion car being replaced by an electric vehicle. Yes, of course, we are part of the solution when it comes to reducing carbon emissions, improving air quality, improving the availability of affordable, good quality housing. Of course, transport is key to that. But transport also creates carbon emissions. What we do here at TfL produces carbon emissions. In fact, transport is the single biggest emitter within the city. So take zero emission buses, for example. If we have a fully zero emission fleet, we will halve TfL's carbon emissions with that one single policy. Combine that with power purchase agreements to get renewable energy to power the tube and other aspects of what we do, and you see a real determined policy here to be the leading driver towards net zero in 2030. That is incredibly important to us.
It's a journey, right? And of course, it's not about extremism. It's not about saying let's remove all the cars, stop all that travel, because every different form of transport has its part to play in this big matrix of needs and users, right?
Of course, and it's the individual who makes the choice. So I'm not sitting here going, right, you take the bus, you take the tube. I mean, that would be absurd, right? So everybody, all of us, me included, of course, we all make a decision on a day-to-day basis. What mode of travel am I going to take? And it changes on a whole range of things. If it's raining, which doesn't happen very often at the moment, but if it rains, then obviously I'm not going to go and cycle. I know some people will, and respect you, and you're amazing people, and I see you out in all weathers, and I top my hat to you, but the reality is I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to get wet. So I will choose a different mode of travel. And so, of course, if I'm carrying lots of things, if I'm moving house, I'm not going to cycle, probably. It probably won't fit in a cargo bike. So I'm going to get a van, etc., etc. So, of course, there are all sorts of decisions that people make on a day-to-day basis. Our job, at city planning level, is to make the public in the active travel much, much more intuitive, much more obvious as a more pleasant choice.
Well, it's all about selling that idea and selling that to the public, of course, because these are giving them people choices and things like having the air quality, having the benefits, sort of the air quality benefits of having ULEZ, for example. You and I both know that life in the centre of London has changed, and my goodness, I can remember going on, walking around feeling a clogging sort of feeling of not smog necessarily, but back in the 2000s of this poor air quality. Now it's fabulous. I can walk around, it genuinely feels and smells nicer. The evidence is there, we know the science is there and it's compelling, but politically it hasn't been easy to sell these things, I think, perhaps. Is that perhaps because we're looking at clean air as something we can't actually see? What is it that makes this so difficult to sell to people, do you think? And how do we get around that?
Yeah, you're right. You can't see it. You can certainly smell it. And I remember, I was born in London. I grew up in London in the 80s, but I was also dragged out kicking and screaming to the home counties. And whenever I came back clawed my way back, I could smell the air. In fact, worse than that, I could taste it, right? And I sort of, when I was in my teens, I just thought that was part of city life, and maybe that's just an inevitable part of being in a city. My goodness, it's absolutely not, and we've proven it. The air is still not where it should be. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It's not the Swiss Alps. It's a city with lots of people and moving parts and buildings and so on. But it is. And I said immeasurably earlier in a different event, it's measurably better.
It's measurably better.
Clearly measurably better in terms of NOx emissions, particulate matter, and so on. And of course, that isn't just about having a nicer feel or indeed not being able to taste things. It's about fewer people dying prematurely. Some 4,000 people died prematurely in our city every single year. So it's incredibly important. You ask why it's so difficult. I think not seeing it is part of the problem. But, the other side is our concept of what freedom is and how people perceive authority to be telling them what to do and forcing them to do things. And it's really not what proper good administration is like. It's about encouraging people, and that's really what we aim to do. And I think the encouraging can be, obviously there's financial incentives, and we've seen that in many different policies, from the congestion charge through to ULEZ, but also kind of taking people with us on this journey. Yes, you can physically experience the difference, but also people care about their health, and they care about the health of their loved ones, and they care about the health of their children. And when you point out the impact of poor air, particularly on young people, people whose lungs are developing, whose lungs are incredibly efficient filters, by the way, that really hits home. And I think, that message combined with the measurable improvements on air quality has made a real difference.
I mean, you mentioned what people can smell and taste, but what they can see, because there's a huge placemaking side and to living in London, and the strategy behind of what you're doing is quite important, isn't it? Let's talk about places for London, working with TfL, but you've got things like tree planting, sustainable drainage and placemaking, all the wildflower verges and so on. But this is a massive thing about perception change, isn't it? And how we're changing the face of London in response to the transport strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And you see it in all sorts of areas as well. I mean, wildflowers and wild meadows is a really interesting example, because you used to think of it as slightly untidy if you walk past a bit of common land or a park and there was a patch of it that had long wavy grass with a few flowers sticking out of it, and you'd think, oh gosh, why don't they just mow that, right? Now, I've got nothing against lawns are lovely, but actually having areas of natural habitat and encouraging natural habitat and building more spaces for natural habitats, I think is an increasingly important part of this. Of course, it has added benefits as well, drainage being an obvious one, where we have less surface runoff because we have sustainable urban drainage systems in place, and increasing that and having proper programs to roll it out. I think, again, people get it now, or certainly increasing numbers of people get it in a way that just wasn't the case before.
Truly a green city for London. But we're talking here in 2025. Look at the next 25 years of TfL, though. What are your hopes and ambitions beyond you and your political career,
beyond
perhaps?
Me, there's no such thing, surely.
What are your hopes for TfL more generally over the next 25 years? And how fundamental is TfL to the future and growth of London?
Oh, incredibly fundamental. I was saying earlier, the roundel is the closest thing London has to a flag. Right. So, when you think about tourist memorabilia and images of London, it's always the Underground, the roundel, red bus. I'm incredibly proud that it's the transport brand, which in many other cities is not seen as a positive. In London, it's seen as an absolutely fundamental part of the city. So continuing with that, making TfL not just a trusted body to deliver on essential transport, but actually somewhere where people feel increasingly safe and protected. TfL as an enabler and a helper to people in the city, that's where I see it going forward.
The strong green heartbeat of London is kind of TfL's tagline now. And look, speaking to Seb then, even if you're cynical about this kind of thing, it's obvious why it's got that moniker now. This was once the city famed for its pea super smogs, wasn't it? And even when I was a kid, this city was traffic gridlocked with smoking exhausts, and huge strides have been made in the last 25 years. And I think they're being made right now to improve London's air quality, health and well-being. So look, big thanks to Seb for his hospitality and his time at City Hall. Okay, I'm back on the DLR, as you can probably hear from the motors whizzing underneath my feet. But look, ahead of us is this track on a concrete viaduct. It's like this slow-mo roller coaster running through East London. Oh, I just love this thing. It is transformative though, because it has totally changed this part of East London by using transport investment. It enabled massive parts of growth of London, and of course it's made a massive change since the 80s of the whole development of Canary Wharf and all of Docklands. And under TfL stewardship, we've seen new extensions, places like City Airport, Woolwich Arsenal and Stratford International as well. And actually, as I mentioned in the last episode, we've got new trains coming online as well. And as you may know, I mean, who doesn't? The DLR doesn't actually have a proper train driver, so to speak, in the traditional sense. There is, however, always a member of staff on every single train. In fact, I can see our conductor just down there. But generally, they don't actually sit in the front and drive it, which, as you and I probably know, that means we have a clear view at the front and the back down the track. So don't you tell me you don't make a nonchalant beeline for that front seat to do that, looking like you're, oh, I'm so cool, I'm totally not pretending to be a driver kind of thing, my friends, because we all know that you are. just like I am right now. Look, check this out though. Look, on this train here, look, this one, TfL has actually put some pretend buttons, these like stickers, on the console by some of the front seats of some of these trains, so you can even pretend you're pushing those too. And do you know what? I think I might do that too. And I'm not embarrassed about that at all. I'm now on the Overground, as you can hear, in fact specifically on the Windrush line. Oh, check out this moquette. Anyway, told you we're going for a lot of modes today. Now, loads of this podcast we do out on the fly, unscripted, out and about, but I actually had to write the next bit down in a bit of crumpled up bit of paper. Anyway, gets out of my pocket. This is quality stuff, this is. Right, here we go. Now, I've jotted down a small snapshot of some of the big other green environmental achievements that TfL has made in the last 25 years. There's some massive stuff here, but also so much I haven't got time to list, so there isn't a comprehensive, complete one, but here we go. Right, there's been an expanded green infrastructure and carbon emissions have been reduced. There's been a massive improved energy efficiency in TfL buildings and depots, and there's actually been expansion of the cycle network we've already talked about, but it really has been a really huge thing for all of London. Electrification of rolling stock, replacing older diesel services and reducing noise pollution. And of course, there's been those zero-emission buses and taxis as well that Seb mentioned. He talked a lot about those. But that's been a huge, huge thing for all of London. But also, of course, you can remember there's been the congestion charge and the low emission zone and the ultra low emission zone, which, even if you're cynical about this, has shown really quite a profound impact on the quality of air that we breathe. And I say that as someone who lives right in the middle of London. And the ULEZ is one of the planet's most ambitious clean air zones. And it's changed my life, personally, living in the middle of town. But meanwhile, TfL's also installed solar panels, LED lighting and smart ventilation and energy-efficient escalators at various tube stations. And there have been trials on things like regenerative braking too. And that feeds back power back into the tube lines from trains as they brake. That's so clever. And of course, all this stuff and so much more is keeping TfL on the path to help the Mayor's target for London to become net zero carbon by 2030.
The next station is West Croydon, our final stop. Please mind the gap between the train and the platform. Thank you for travelling with London Overground.
Now, a quick pause on my journey on this bench here, where I take this opportunity to introduce you to some very special people who I was lucky enough to meet earlier this year. They are the TfL Superfans, and in a way, they represent the future of London, and perhaps, who knows, the future of TfL too. So these are all young people aged between 5 and 16 who won a competition to celebrate TfL's 25th anniversary. They had to write in to say why they were a fan of a particular mode of TfL transport in 100 words or less. The prize included a chance to record a personalised audio message that would be played out on the TfL network to all the customers travelling through a particular station. So I popped down to the wonderful London Transport Museum to meet them because there was a little celebration happening there for all the winners. Now, I'm going to play you some of the chats I had with some of those brilliant, wonderful, lovely, thoughtful young people who won the competition. But first, here are some of the messages they recorded that were then played out on the TfL network.
Hello, my name is Adam and I am a super fan of TfL.
Hello, my name is Aria and I am a super fan of the Tube.
Hello, my name is Adam and I am a super fan of IFS Cloud Cable Car.
It's TfL's 25th anniversary today.
So join me and the other Transport Superfans in saying a big happy birthday. And remember to mind the gap.
Oh, some of those just lovely. And now here I am speaking to some of the young winners at the museum. Nice to meet you, Adam. Now, what do you love about the cable car?
Because it's relaxing, you don't have to drive, and it's 90 metres above the ground.
Yeah.
You get a bird's eye view from there, and you can see lots of nice buildings.
My name's Fraser and I'm from Lewisham. Feels quite special, and all the people in London, and I was chosen to be one of them.
Now, what particularly about London Transport and TfL, what mode do you really like above all the others?
I like the tram because it goes on the road and it shares stops with the buses.
I'm Orwa and I'm 8 years old. I like the trains and I also like bicycles.
Ah, the bicycle stuff. Do you do cycling yourself?
Well, I'm learning to do it without stabilisers in my grandma's garden.
And what are you looking forward to, do you think, about the future of London Transport?
In the future of transport, I think that the bikes are all going to be electric and that some children will get to use jetpacks.
I hope you enjoyed some of those chats. I loved meeting all those young people. A huge, huge thanks to all of them for getting involved and making me feel so welcome at their event. Right, now I'm just heading over to the very last stop on my journey around London that I've been on for the last, 4 episodes. Oh, I love these. Guess what? I've got aboard now. No, it is not a train. No, it's not a bus. Okay, actually, it is both those things. I'm just nonchalantly cruising down Croydon High Street on a tram. So the London Tram network actually dates back almost about 160 years now, but back then when it started, introduced by a one Mr. Train, don't you know, it was all horse-drawn. It was electrified and opened up low-cost, high-quality transit for everyone in the city, and people loved those trams. They were like gentle galleons, swaying double-deck down the street, people said, and to cut a long story short, the tram network was closed in 1952, but after nearly 50 years, the trams then came back to London streets in 2000, the same year that TfL was born. So this year is a 25th birthday for the trams team this year as well. Now, TfL has managed the trams since 2007, and now this network carries an incredible over 17 million passengers every year. And there are 39 tram stops, and the trams are fully electric, and they're actually step-free too. And I always think the trams, strangely, are a way of indicating a city has reached a kind of a higher level of civilization, right? People love trams. I definitely do. But look, the reason I'm here is I genuinely meet people who don't even know there are still trams in London. I'm not just talking about non-Londoners, so I think it's a great example of something huge that TfL does that some people aren't even aware of. And there's so much more of that sort of thing, of course. I mean, what about the Woolwich Ferry, for example? That carries cars and vans and lorries, pedestrians and cyclists. They're completely free, by the way, back and forth across the river. A really important service for that part of London. In fact, or the series of piers maybe that TfL manages, or the charging stations, or the new Silvertown Tunnel. Hugely successful, incredible engineering project. I mean, I haven't had any time yet to mention all that stuff on these shows, all those things. And there are programmes too, like Dial-A-Ride, and every one of those buses on Dial-A-Ride is it really is a journey that really matters to all those people aboard. Oh, what about even Victoria Coach Station? I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's all the ideas and leadership from TfL too, and a lot of it really world-leading stuff. TfL is made up of tens of thousands of amazing and some really dedicated people, and in the end it's always the people who actually make things happen, of course, from the offices to the front lines and beyond. It's honestly been amazing to get my head around just how much they manage and run all over London. But I've got to stop somewhere, and it's going to be here. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of our guests for joining me, and to you, of course, for listening. In fact, I'm going to leave the very, very last word in this series to you, the customers of TfL, because obviously all of this stuff we've been talking about in these episodes about TfL's achievements and innovations and history, all of it only happens and continues because it serves you, the customers. So we spoke to some members of the travelling public to get your thoughts on TfL and what it means to you. So here they are. And meanwhile, it's goodbye from me. And don't forget to always mind the gap.
I think people from all over the world like to travel and use the transport system in London because it's easy. I've been all over the world and used other metro systems, and I think ours is the easiest by far.
The veins and arteries of the capital, getting people, again, like from where they are to where they want to be.
I think it's just a pretty iconic thing, man. It's the way that people have moved around London for many years. Nights out, going to work, lots of different things.
The transportation system is in London is amazing. Thank you so much.
When I was younger, I used to always travel on the buses. So I would always remember a lot of joyful moments with my friends. So, you know, it would always keep me going, you know. And those are the memories that I'll always cherish for the rest of my life.
Happy 25th birthday, TfL. Thank you.
Happy 25th birthday, TfL.
Happy 25th birthday, TfL.
Happy 25th birthday, TfL.
Happy 25th birthday to TfL.
Happy 25th birthday to TfL.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Please mind the gap.